Welcome to another exciting podcast episode featuring Grant Watson. Prepare to be inspired as we delve into the extraordinary story of Grant and his wife Audrey as they made a life-altering decision in 2016 to leave the vibrant Gold Coast of Queensland, Australia. But what truly sets their story apart is their unwavering commitment to going entirely off the grid. Over the course of the past 6 years, Grant and Audrey have not only constructed their dream home but 2 additional adjoining houses, all crafted with their own hands. Their journey is a testament to the power of human ingenuity, resourcefulness, and the unwavering desire to live in harmony with the land. Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. Today we've got Grant coming on all the way from Warwick in sunny Queensland. So Grant, welcome today.
Thanks, Mike.
Now we need Grant to tell a bit of a story. So Grant's actually, it was funny when the girls were doing the research of, Grant, this guest, and they're like, we can't find anything online. I'm like, Grant's, and it's probably unfair to say just a customer, but I was like, Grant's a customer, guys. He's not famous like everyone else has been on the podcast. And I suppose for me, this is something that I know you and I have been talking about for a long time. And what I really wanted to do with the podcast and my intention with it from the start was to take everyday people's journeys, someone like yourself, and to share your story, accelerate their journey off grid. And, we met back in 2016 and, we've had a lot of conversations between now and then. I suppose there's a lot of lessons, for both of us we've learned in that time that we can take and share that knowledge and information that can help accelerate someone else's journey going off grid that, that don't have to go through what you've been through. And the lessons that they learn, they can learn other lessons. So, Matt, I'll get you to tell you a bit about your story. And if you can tell us where it all started and when you went off grid.
Thanks, Mike, and it's good to be here and watching all of the things that you've done over the last few years. It's been certainly interesting. So we decided to get off grid because we just wanted a greater independence. The way things were, I get pretty vocal about my views and the way I see the world and all that sort of stuff, as I'm sure that we all do from time to time. And I won't really make any apologies, but I suppose by talking about it, it is an apology if I get a little bit too passionate about things. So that's me. It's warts and all. I will make this first apology, and that is in the background here. We're moving out. Well, basically, we've all but completely moved out. We do an uplift in 2 days, and we're moving, and we're going from off grid to a new off grid. So that's why the place is how it looks, and this is actually Eagle's Nest Farm, and
Exciting times.
Exciting times, and we are. Maybe we can talk a bit more about that down the track.
Yeah, like towards the end, because I'd be interested to see, I suppose, to do another podcast and discuss the things that you do different the second time, because I know for me, this is my third house I've taken off grid, and I did things very different. I constantly get to learn. I'm lucky enough that I see, done over 1,000 people's houses now, and I get to see everyone's mistakes and what didn't work and what works. And I've said to my wife that I reckon when we're 50, we'll build our forever home. Another, only 7 years. I was about to say 10 years then, but that's not true. I've only got 7 years left because I get to experience a lot more and see a lot more things. And that's my plan to build when I'm 50. So it'd be good. It's interesting to see some of your thoughts on what you do different next time. So, mate, tell us about the process. You've done some really unique things. Like, tell us a bit about. So you've done the whole house yourself, like literally built it with your hands yourself. Tell us a bit more about, and I know you did something unique where you actually went in with a family member and whether you designed the house, and there's technically 2 houses there. So tell us a bit about that and that thought process and how it all worked.
Audrey's sister, she lives down the other side. And what how that all came about, to just give a little bit of brief background. Joan, Audrey's sister, she was a single mum, but empty nester, and her and Audrey are quite close, as sisters normally do, and she'd been renting for decades, and it was always in my mind. I thought, well, it'd be good to be able to help out where we could, and try and include her here, and so that she would have a permanent place to live. That was it. So we built a house, and we basically did two mirror images, if you like, and with a little bit extra in the middle for Audrey and I, and Joan was on the other end. So it's a big long house of 24 metres with a 3 metre deck out the front, and a huge mud room in the middle at the back, and joining the two. The thing about this build was that we had to do it, and we had to do it as quickly as we could. I'll cut to the chase now. It took 2.5 years, and we didn't do it all, because there were some things that we had to actually get some trades in. Like, for example, you can't actually see it now. I might be able to tilt up a little bit, and you can see that vaulted ceiling there. That's 4.2 metres up to there, and all of this that you see is not gyprock or drywall, as some people would call it. It's actually a magnesium oxide board, and it's non-combustible.
I didn't know that. I did the same at my place.
It's very, very it's very heavy.
Yes.
And a hell of a lot of it. So we've got it in the walls, in the ceiling, vaulted ceiling, and externally as well, and on the floor. So.
What was the reason you chose magnesium oxide board?
Well, we just fell into it. We actually got a recommendation from a friend of Jones who was in. He wasn't a builder, but he built prefab homes and some not so prefabricated. And a number of things, and it was a recommendation that came through. Yep. The end result of this MGO board is, good stuff, but I wish I had have done even a lot more homework on it, because it's very hard to work with. It's very expensive, but it is non-combustible, and being in a bushfire area, that's pretty important. But
having contradicting though. Because everyone says like magnesium. It's like because it's actually called fire check. A lot of people call it fire check. So
Okay. I forget the name of it now. Doesn't matter. I frankly, happy with what it's done, but I wouldn't do it again.
Yep.
So there's one thing that I wouldn't do on that side of it, and that's because of other reasons that I haven't mentioned, and that is it's very hard, very brittle, and you've got to have hard joints. So when you've got to set the thing, and blah blah blah.
I know all about that. we used expansion joints in our place, and then half our house is all cracked, because they didn't use the right to set it properly. And so the other half we did expansion joints, and we actually did the expansion joints first, and then the second guy didn't want to do expansion joints, and the expansion joints look great. It's just old school the way they used to do it, and especially in the Northern Rivers.
that's what we've got there in the apex there. That is an expansion joint. It was great. But I digress a little bit and just say that when we started this, we did our ensuite. I actually got up there and set all of that. All this, we put all of this in ourselves, just not the ceiling.
Yeah.
And I started and did the bedroom in the. That's where I started to put the ceiling in, and I just worked it out. Hey, there's no way in the world I'm going to be able to do all this myself.
Yeah,
Too heavy. Using panel lifters and things like that. Anyhow, so. But I set the bathroom, and I'll tell you now, that's the only place that hasn't actually cracked. Bathroom ceiling. So I was pretty proud of that one.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, mate, you're moving to the Northern Rivers, so your new venture. So maybe it's you want to earn some income down here, mate. You come reset my place for me.
Well, yeah, that's it.
Get out of retirement. So, so tell us more about. So with the two houses inside the house, so you pretty much had like a shared lounge room and a shared kitchen.
No, we've got it's basically 2 bedroom, 2 bathroom, 2 living areas, 2 kitchens, and you can see behind we call that the great room, and that's where the fireplace is and what have you, and we've just got a larger breakout area in there. Jones got the same as what we've got in here, which is I can actually turn the computer around. There's the kitchen there, and there's a doorway which goes through to the laundry and joins up to Jones' place, which is the same as ours in here. And over there we've got go into the bedroom, and in behind here where this little desk area is the bathroom and walk-in robe.
Interesting. Okay, so it's because I've never been to Jones' house. I've only been to your place.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah. So just for those that might find it interesting, many people actually said, "Whoa, geez, you're a brave man, moving in there with your wife and her sister." And look, all fairness, we've all tried very hard to do it, but we have found some difficulties at times. And that is one of the minor reasons, but it is one of the reasons why we decided to go different ways. But we've been here together, having our ups and downs for the last 6 years, and so it's been interesting from that perspective. Yeah.
Awesome.
Hang on, there she is. Okay. And the other thing is the size of the property. Over 200 acres. Here we are. We come out from the Gold Coast to retire and start farming. I wouldn't necessarily say that you should do that, everyone. But we did, and I tell you now, I'd have to say this is one of the most exciting times that we've had in our lives, and to come out and start farming out here, get the cattle, go into the drought of all droughts that we had that finished in 2019. There was something to be said for that. It's really interesting.
So because you guys were I thought you were close to 300 acres or something.
203.
Oh, 203. Okay, cool. Yeah, okay. Yeah, right. That's huge. So with your new property, how much land have you got in your new property?
10.7 acres.
10.7. Awesome. Yeah, that's I've always said
Sarah. We've actually expanded because the home yard here is 1.6, and then there's some surrounding bits and pieces down where the lake is and the shearing shed. and that whole area comprises about 7 acres. But so we're actually not downsizing; we're actually upsizing on the homeland.
Yeah. Well, I think, look, I know for Sarah and I have always really talked about, having 100 acres. That was always my number. I want a minimum of 100 acres because it was more the distance and from neighbors and what I really wanted. But I started to think more and more and look at it and go, well, I actually really only want 2 to 7 was my number.
Yeah.
If it was 10 or 13, whatever, like it was quite small. But I was really, and what I'm really looking for now, even for myself, but we do a lot of projects for clients, but even for myself, right, I'm just looking for a nice little bit of land that's on the state side of a state forest or something that, it just keeps the neighbors away or that distance from people. But you feel like, the same as our property in town, like we're the only house in the middle of Lismore in the middle of 7 acres. So I own 600 square meters. And, if you look at my house and you have a look around, like you'd swear I'm in the middle of nowhere until the drone comes up and just sees a hospital. Right. I think the hospital's like 300 meters from my house.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So with managing that 300 acres, like what was, I suppose the 7 acres was that the house yard, we'll call that. How much time and energy was looking after the other 200 and, the larger amount, the other 193 acres?
Yeah. Okay. There was I suppose by percentage, not a lot, and the reason for that is that we had state forest, and we had cattle, and you've also got to remember the time, because when we arrived here, we had a couple of lean years of water, and then 2019 happened, and we had 142 millimeters of rainwater in that time, and that was, and the drought finished quite literally. I think it was 2 days after Christmas in 19. The dam was right down to its last 5 inches, 150 mil thereabouts, and we were lucky that it all started to come back out of it. We got the growth. We had a thing here called tree pear, which is a cactus, and
so is that prickly pear?
Prickly pear, yeah, prickly pear.
Have you ever eaten the fruit of a prickly pear?
No, I haven't, but I've told it's beautiful.
Amazing, absolutely amazing. I was at a barbecue one night eating this. I'm like, what's this? Like, it's prickly pear.
So, I must admit, I didn't accidentally. I deliberately picked up the flower, or the fruit, more to the point, not realising it, that it had the finest hairs on it, and they actually dig into your skin, and they're all but impossible to get out.
Yeah.
And through further research, I found out the only way to get them out was sticky tape. And you put your sticky tape on there and pull them out that way. And the electric fence, because there's 4.2 kilometres of electric fence, and so maintaining that was significant, but not a real problem. Once you got your head around it, you got to remember, I'm a city slicker coming out here, and you got to work out. We got 10,000 volts here. We've got to work with this, and okay, and yeah, I digress.
So with that, 4Ks, is that around your whole property, around the 200 acres? That's what about 4Ks of fences?
Yeah,
awesome. And so, mate, with the drought and this stuff out there. So when I was at your place, interested, you did something really interesting with the tanks. So what was your plan? Remind me again what you did with your water tanks over the yards.
With the tanks, we simply said this. We always want to make sure we want to have enough water, and as everybody would. And so we said, when a tank gets full and it starts to overflow, buy another one. So we did that. So we've got 5 22,500 litre tanks, and that's when we said, nah, we're going to stop now. We've got to stop buying. And basically, the setup that I have is where we actually started to, or where we camped whilst we built the house, which is like 10 metres below us, but 160 metres out towards the dam and near the shearing shed. That's where we put our first tank, and a second, and in fact our third tank as well, whilst the house got built. So once the house got built, all the tanks were full because we got the catchment from the shearing shed. And once the house got built, which we ended up with 314 square metres of roof space, we rolled the tanks up. We emptied them first, one at a time, and then pumped them up and filled up one, and then moved the next one and filled that up, and moved them all right back up to where out the back here, where we continue to put a couple more on. And then all the water was just pumped up with a cheap Chinese pressure pump, and that goes up to the hill above the house, slips it up about 35 metres in height. And we have a 5,000 litre tank up there. And so that comes down and just gravity fed, so we don't have to hear pumps going all the time and on and off, and you know how it goes.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was it. We did the same. Same with the dam water. The dam water came in, pumped that up to another 5,000 litre tank adjacent to the drinking water, and that went to the top and was gravity fed down. And with that, I ran it through 4 filters, 100 micron filters, to clean up the water, and we use that in our toilets. And yeah, it's I'd have to say it's 98% clear water that you see in there. We just didn't want to have all the sediment from the dam in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the setup there.
So is that water only used for toilets? So do you use it for showering or washing, or is it just?
No. The filtered dam water, that is purely for toilets only. So we've got essentially a dual water line system under the house.
Yeah.
And all the drinking water is purely for drinking, washing, and clothes washing, and that sort of stuff. The filtered dam water, we've got 6 taps on the outside and everywhere else, and they're all
Dam water.
All dam water, yeah, filtered dam water. But I also have outlets that aren't filtered, so you're not blocking your filters up quickly. And the filters, I have to say, we get 4 to 6 months out of them before you get any impact on pressure.
Interesting. Yeah, okay. And so how do you find that head pressure with the gravity feed tank? Just for the
Oh, yeah. Well, put it this way, I'm running, I've got a big brass impact sprinkler there, and that goes out 15, about 15 metres.
Yep.
That way. And there's no pump. No.
So how do you when do you make the decision to pump energy up?
That was way before, but and with the learning curve happening simultaneously, that was before. So initially, I actually had a firefighting pump in the dam, and I just run that, had that set up with a float valve, and it was petrol powered, and I just go down and start it once a day or once every 2 days or whatever, and it only took 10-15 minutes, and bang, she'd be full and done and dusted. But of course, I soon got tired of that. And we were talking about fires as well, and the other things that you talk about when you do all this sort of stuff. And in the end, we made a decision about fires. If there was a fire that came through, that we decided we're going to leave. And that was that. It was not worthwhile panicking about. So for that reason, I said, well, I'm not going to worry about a firefighting pump, petrol-powered firefighting pump. And so I wanted to get basically a jet pump, and that's where I changed up to a electric, 240-volt electric jet pump that lifted 7 metres and pumped it up a further 37 metres, whatever it was.
Awesome.
Yeah, and use the electric, and this is the, when you and I have talked over the years, doing this, getting all electric, and I saw the value in that, because if you recall, tell the viewers there that we started with 2,512 watts of solar panels, those Styon ones there.
Yep.
And
technology.
They were and are fantastic, but they actually gave out 20-30% more power than what they actually were rated at. We got up to 3,600 watts out of them, thereabouts, which was amazing. But anyhow, that's when we did the upgrade, put in a further 6 kilowatts of solar, which is a major recommendation as far as I'm concerned, to get as much as possible that you can possibly afford. And in this last 5 or 6 years, the price of panels, and especially second-hand panels now that you can pick up for next to nothing, a song or two, it gives you the ability to have obviously a greater impact on the sunshine that you can reap and get that power. And so powering everything up into, like, this is a 1.4 kilowatt pump that we were using for that water. It runs, we put the veggie patch on and run that for 40 minutes a day, thereabouts, and that pumps all the water back up and keeps it all topped up with the float valve. And running on electricity was the go, just like our hot water service. Electricity, very much.
That's it. So tell us a bit, like, how all your timers, everything you've done with your hot water to make the most out of because you haven't really used much smarts with that hot water, have you? It's just a simple timer.
Well, no, it is. It isn't. Let me tell you. I learned a lesson, and here's one for you. I had the drinking. This is the drinking water. I had the little Chinese pump on it, and that was going up the top, and it had the big float valve on it, dual float valve, and that was all good. And one morning I woke up, and I wake up every morning, but I woke up this morning and what's going on? We've got nothing. This gravity feed, and so off I went, got in the car, and went up the hill, and got up there, and the tank was empty, wasn't it? The tank was empty. What's going on here? Anyhow, the tank wasn't empty. The tank was full, but it had been overflowing, and the tank down the bottom was empty because it had pumped everything up, but it was overflowing because the float valve didn't shut off and it kept going over the top. And so everything up the top, it was all watered nicely, with all of our drinking water. And I went, note to self, make sure that float valve is installed nice and firmly, won't move, fix that. Next, note to self, go and put a bloody timer and put that on the pump. So from that day onward, we had an analog, and then I went to digital with some memory in it. And it just comes on at 9 o'clock in the morning and runs until she's topped up. And generally that's only about 15 minutes. And so that was it. So when you're in a drought, or even not even in a drought, don't get your water and pump it up and leave it unattended to just continue pumping.
Yeah. No, good advice. Good advice.
I tell you what, that was a good one.
Yeah, no, good lessons learned. I know a lot of properties I've worked on, and it's one thing that they do, and I suppose similar to what you've done with the 5,000 litre tank up top, is that if there is a leak from up the top, have a smaller tank up top, you're only losing 5,000 litres of water.
And that was my main reason, or one of the main reasons to have that. So you've got that.
Yeah. And so, mate, your hot water. So a lot of people, there's a lot of talk these days about heat pumps, and a lot of people want to steer clear away from the, electric hot waters or the elements, resistive load, I suppose, basically. Tell us a bit more about how your hot waters worked, and, you're about to go to a new property. Would you stay with your resistive load, or would you go with?
Okay. So the bottom line is with this, first off, it's a 315 litre tank. That's important to note that we've got that much. And we changed the element out from a 3600 watt to an 1800 watt. So it takes a lot longer to do it. And in fact, it takes, if I can get it on and have it running for about at least 7 hours from absolute cold on your first installation or your first fill, it takes 2 days to heat that up before it's switching off. So it was getting up my nose a bit, where I had to be completely in control of it and turning it on, turning it off, doing all of that sort of gear. And so one of the lessons that I've learned along the way is try to automate certain things if you can, but be aware that if you automate things, you have a tendency to forget about things unless you're really keeping right on top of it. Anyhow, so I found this timer that had Wi-Fi, and I was able to connect to it and turn it on and off, and it had some bells and whistles so you could automate it and that type of thing. So I installed that, and the big thing was here. When we went away for a trip, and we'd go away for 2 or 3 weeks, Joan's still here, and we've got to make sure that the water's still going. So while I'm on holidays, I've still got to, through the Wi-Fi, turn it all on, turn it off, do all that sort of gear. So with the automation, it made it a little bit easier, but I still had to turn it on because I was always concerned about the overcast, like it is today, and turn it on, and I'd check through the Victron color controller and see what's going on with the power, and go, oh yeah. As soon as I turn it on, I get the load happening, and she's already in float, so it then kicks in and the panels start up and all that sort of gear. So it worked fine from that perspective. So, but over the years, that has become, well, I suppose you could say less problematic, but it is a bit of a problem
Yeah.
Problematic, less problematic for me, but more of a problem because of the duration. And this is where one of the big lessons will be modified when we go to this next place. And we will be going with hot water, electric hot water. People say, oh, you should have solar hot water. Hello, it is solar hot water. It's solar hot water because it's solar powered and it's heating from solar power.
Yep. Yeah, that's how I sort of think about electric, using solar panels, because the problem I find with solar hot water, it's way too good, it's too efficient. And because on the hot days, it's amazing, it heats up really quick, but you're in the same situation on a bad day. So you really know further ahead.
The other thing was I priced up solar to have that installed here, and this is going back now, crikey, seven years plus, and it was near enough around the 8,000 mark just to get that done.
Yeah.
I thought, oh no, why do that?
Yeah, and the way I think about it, so you can spend that money on solar panels or batteries, and the good thing about solar panels and batteries is that when the hot water's hot, you can still use that solar panel and batteries to do something else with it, rather than if you just got solar hot water, you got hot water, you got hot water, and you got hot water. So
absolutely. I also went through the other thing where I set up, the pressure hot water, like it's called, it's plastic pipe, the PEX pipe, plumber's pipe, whatever you want to call it. I'm not a professional. But I did, would have been 350 meters. I set it up on plywood and a frame and what have you. I was going to glass over and had it all set up. Oh, the girls really loved me on that one because you had to put all these wire through and tighten it all down, so it was all neat and tidy, and you had all these coils going through. And so we had two big boards of these huge coils, two sets of those, and I had it out there, and I was trying to. This is just my way of doing some testing and playing with it, and I tried to pre-warm all the water up before it's going into the tank from the sun on the sunny days, and do it that way. But in the end, that didn't work out the way that I would have liked to have, and so that's set aside, and that will be used in another area. Watch this space.
Exciting. So, mate, tell us a bit about your solar system. And that's actually not fair to say, isn't it? So, your renewable energy system, because you've got something that every time I do a talk, I get asked about, Wendy. So, mate, tell us the size of your system and.
Okay, so we started with 2.5, increased that to 8.5 for the solar. And then we added in a 1.5 kilowatt, we call it Wendy, a little wind turbine. And so that was a hybrid. And so Wendy was, the bottom line is I've come to a conclusion. Even though we've got 180 wind turbines being constructed out the back as we speak, but they're the closest one is 6 kilometres away, so it's not a problem. But in other words, what I'm saying is this is potentially a heck of a lot of wind here at times. But because of the smarts of the controllers that we've got in there, as soon as, for example, we come into the morning, batteries are in full charge mode, sun's out, yoo-hoo, and it might be in absorption mode. As soon as she's in absorption mode and we need to go and boil the jug, for example, we might be hovering around 300 watts load, and then we put the jug on. That takes it up to about 2200, and but it's more than the PV that we're getting from the sun. What will happen then, if it's windy, the turbine will start up. But as soon as the jug's boiled, we go back to the other load of say 300. You hear the electromagnetic brake in it stop the turbine.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just came to the conclusion. I just thought when it is really flying, and I'm talking about it is hammering that turbine. The best that we ever got, was anywhere between about 200 and 300 watts. And I'm talking about that was a 45, 50 kilometre hour wind that's coming in and hammering the place. And so I came to the conclusion, wind does not do it for me.
Yeah, I think it's a thing I tell people. It's really best left up to the bigger systems and commercial sort of stuff. It's real challenging to get to work in a residential situation. I think it's either like there's little, unfortunately, like a lot of the boat ones I see that are just 200, 300 watts, they're gold. If someone did those at 48 volt, I think, because that base 200 watt load cranking through would be great. But yeah, it's wind's complicated, so very complicated.
Yeah. One thing I did say or can say about the wind that certainly did help us through from time to time is that, of course, as soon as that sun goes down and it is windy, which is generally the case, we're picking up anywhere between, shall we say, on a more of an average day, anywhere between 10 and maybe 30, 40 watts through the night. And so what it does is it just helps to trickle in a bit more into the batteries overnight if you're a bit short.
No, totally. Cool. So your system, considering, so you have gas cooking, is that right?
This time, this will be the last though.
Yeah. Is that the only gas thing in the house?
No, no, it's not. We have a wood stove, Audrey and I, and Joan, because of the distance, she was using our electric hot water, but because of the distance, it was taking too long, and that's why I played with a looping hot water system to try and have instant hot water for her down there. But that was one of the trades that maybe I should have done, plumbing and that, and it just didn't work. So in the end, what happened is Joan chose to put in a gas, instant gas. Yeah, and that was it. And because also Joan ran heating for her place.
So you use gas heating in her place instead of the wood stove?
You use gas heating because she doesn't use much of it. She's obviously got a warm heart because she doesn't have a lot of heat.
Oh, funny. Yeah, cool. Okay, so because you do a lot on I know you got a lot of panels, but really your inverter, you've only got a 5 kilowatt inverter.
Yes, that'll be different.
So all up, you've got about a bit over 8 kilowatts of panels.
8.5 kilowatts of panels, 1.5 of wind, and the nickel-ion batteries.
Yep, awesome. So you get about 10 kilowatt hours there in storage. So, so it's pretty impressive considering that. Yeah, you run electric hot water, all the electric pumps, and do as much as you can.
2 fridges. We've got a dishwasher. We run the dishwasher. We do that. And of course, the other thing is that's interesting, that over the last 6 years, just the increase in the amount of electrical devices that you have,
Yeah.
and it's not going south; it's going north. They just keep going. They just keep bringing out new stuff, don't they? You
Yep.
know about that, the thermo
No,
mix and all those sorts of things.
that we do. So yeah, no, it's definitely there's a really big push for well in Victoria now you can't I think 2024 you can't build a house with gas.
Yeah.
So
And,
I've
and
actually the question I had to a couple of people was, does that going to actually consider off grid as well? I think you just can't connect to the town gas. I think you can actually have gas with bottled gas, but something I was
but
trying to get clarity on. And
yes, it's going to go the same way as I would expect. Electricity, with your power stations and bits and pieces. Just now, the way they've gone up 20-30% in the last couple of months.
yeah,
Um,
like gas has gone up a lot. Yeah, so
I have to say we do snicker when they have it on the news. You go, look out, everybody! They're going that way. The electricity, not us. It's one thing we've enjoyed is yeah, the lack of bills.
yeah,
That's the thing about coming back to being off grid and being sustainable, and it is just so fantastic. I'm the cook here too, and when I'm making up lunch or something like that, and I'm not cooking, you just go down and get a couple of lettuce leaves and get a tomato, and you've already got some beetroot, and come in and make up a sandwich, and away you go. It's beautiful.
totally. And so, mate, there's one thing I suppose I forgot to talk about is because it's really actually not a big impact on your energy system. Tell us about your natural swimming pool, your spa bath.
Oh, okay. Well, it's not a spa bath, but you could call it a plunge pool.
Plunge pool.
And I think you might even have a picture of it there. But yeah, when we lived on the Gold Coast there, we had a 50,000 litre pool, and with all the chemicals and salt and bits and pieces and that. And Audrey loves to have a swim. I'm not particularly fussed either way. And she said, "Well, we got to have a pool. We got to have a pool." So I said, "Yeah, right. Oh, okay. Well, we'll get a pool, but look out, here's trouble." And so I thought, well, I want to do this right, and I want to make sure that it's not going to chew into our electricity use. And knowing what, if anybody does with pools, they can really chew up a bit of electricity pumping through as they did. So I did quite a bit of research and got some wonderful information from who I would call the guru, and I'm sure I can give him a plug, David Pagan Butler. And he is yeah, that's it there. Yeah, lovely. And so and that's Eddie there too. Anyhow, so that's a little doggy dock, that black thing there. That's they can get out.
I remember asking what was that all about. So
yeah, that's it. So we just got it's a aquifer tank. It's 10,000, 10,000 litres, and I made some twigging, and it's I have to say it could be a little more efficient, but the fact that we ended up deciding to move to the next stage and move on, I would have increased the capacity of the filter system. So let me quickly explain the filter system of it. What actually happens is that you can see on the far side, at the top side, there's a little white thing there with a black hole in the middle of it. That's the intake or outtake of the water of the pool. Yeah, that's it. And that goes back into that IBC cube, and that IBC cube is 66% full of blue metal aggregate. And down the bottom of that, there is a Aggie pipe, a circular Aggie pipe, and that snakes around the bottom and then goes into the outlet of the IBC. That outlet then goes into a vertical 100 mil pipe, which comes up, and you can see, if you can put that cursor back there, Mike. Here's me actually trying to move it for you. Where the waterfall is there, that pipe, 100 mil pipe, goes above the outer rim of the pool and into a tray, and then it has an inner I think it's a 40, no, it might be a 50 mil pipe inside that 100 mil pipe, and down the center of the 50 mil pipe is an airline, and that airline goes right the way down to the bottom, where the water is enabled to come up the center. And when you then turn on that air stone and have the air pumping, it comes up and obviously lightens the water because of it's aerated, and it lifts the water and you create a waterfall, and in doing that it gives you that flow. And so that's constantly flowing, and it works on 20 watts continuous, 20 watts power. I should say that the 100 mil, it actually goes down 500 mil below the bottom of the pool. So that's actually dug right down to get the impact that you need.
Awesome. So how much maintenance does it require? Hang on.
Okay, on the maintenance side of things, that was touch and go to start with, but we got down to a nice little pattern now. And basically what happens, if we get any sort of rainfall or evaporation, we need to just top up, because I haven't got the ratios big enough on the filter, because that's only 1,000 litres compared to the 10,000 litres that it's filtering. Well, it's actually 11,000, isn't it? And so what I do there is we just have a little chlorine tablet sitting in the top there, and that cleans it sufficiently so that it's all drinking water. You could actually drink it. The dogs drink out of it all the time because it's quite convenient. The only other thing, when we top it up with water or it rains, you find that it becomes a little bit acidic. And so what I do is I just put a bit of a pH increaser in it to lift up the pH. And that's a little slurry of makeup, and just toss it in there, and that might be as and when required, and that's minor. So the cleaning, you can see there's a little grey cord going in there. There's a little robotic cleaner, in fact, in there, and he scoots around the bottom doing the cleaning for us, and that was a must by Audrey, because we had that back over in the other property, and
Gold Coast.
Yep, and that's it.
Awesome.
But I'll tell you what, we did have it all covered up so that it wouldn't get too hot in summer. And there's, as you can see as well, there's plants in there. At that point in time, they were only just starting to kick off.
So does it get really cold in winter, even though it's only a small body of water?
it gets cold in summer. We have shade cloth over the top covering the whole thing. I ended up taking the center third, if you like, of shade cloth off. That's why you can see it, if you can, maybe. You can in the foreground there. There's that shadow, and that is down, left.
Yeah.
All that shadow, that is from a third of it. And so I took a third of it away to help warm it up so that I could even have a swim in summer, because it's nice and cool. It was a beautiful, like 21 in summer, but with it completely covered, it was too cold. Even Audrey would think twice about going in summer.
Interesting. That's great.
Yeah.
Unreal. So cool. Well, mate, so exciting time. So you've just sold up this place now. You've got your new place.
Yep, stage 2.
Very exciting. So is there anything, if you had your time to do that place again, what would you do different?
How long's a piece of string? Well, first things first, and we'll be talking about this, Mike, for sure, but I'd have 2 inverters at least.
Yep.
Running in parallel, so that should one go down, as we have had, you've still got power.
Yeah. And what was the reason that one went down that time?
That was a gecko decided to have a pea inside it because it wasn't 100% vermin proof.
Yeah.
Even though it had its own little house in there with everything in it, it wasn't 100% vermin proof. So that's another thing I would do differently. Make sure that it is 100% vermin proof. That was a $2,000, just under $2,000 mistake.
Yeah.
Definitely for us, with what's going on around the world and electronic devices and everything that you do, we're going to be looking at a 10 to 20 kilowatt system. And, we'll be talking about that, as I said, Mike. And if you've got the capacity then that takes away the concerns, interruptions, the worrying about your wife or your partner or whatever. When they say, "Hey, Dale, can I turn the jug on?" Just don't have, or I want to do some ironing or whatever it may be, So
check with the energy Nazi first.
Yeah. That's it. And look, just on that note too, to go back a peg, one of the big things about coming out off grid, what had to happen, and that was I had to educate two ladies about something that they didn't want to be educated in, and that was, well, look, if it'll dry your hair, if it'll boil a jug or toast some bread, you need to think, and you've got to check to make sure that it's not going to go over and shut the system down. And so education, learning curves just going that way all the time.
No, totally.
Really important.
Yeah, and I think that's one really good thing with the systems these days is you can grow them and expand them. Where 2016 battery technology wasn't really there, and The
other thing that I looked at very closely over the last few years, if we had ended up staying here, I was actually going to go to micro hydro, and well, I wasn't going to take down the wind turbine. I would have installed micro hydro, And our new place, which has permanent creek frontage, I've been looking at that. However, I've done a bit more research, as you know what I'm like, and I think I might be at the point where we won't even need to do that, and we can just run off a small power supply overnight. As you know, we go through about 2.5 to 3.5 kilowatts between 6 p.m. and 8 a.m. in the morning, and so there's not a hell of a lot of battery requirement there. Mind you, at the same time, we also have learned how to minimise our needs for that overnight as well. But yeah, so hydropower, and I in looking into micro hydropower, I did come across a fantastic business, and the name of that business is Power Spout, and it's a New Zealand company, and I've included a link there for Joy and yourself, for people. They are really fantastic, and they do a marvelous job out there in the developing countries in providing power solutions to them with their various models that they have of it. A really good system.
Yep. No, it is. So, yeah. Awesome. Very exciting. Well, mate, I look forward to having this conversation with you about your new project and being involved helping out there in the design, because they're to me, it's just, I've doing a lot of village designs at the moment. That's what I'm really excited about. I feel like the residential stuff these days is very simple and easy and just done. But yeah, I've actually got quite a few projects at the moment we're doing, which is designs for villages, which is very exciting. So literally trying to make that, because it's when you work with a family, you quite easily, I suppose that you guys had that challenge as well with just you and Joan just there next door, but servicing all those power needs, and everyone turns everything on at different times and different loads. And yeah, so, and trying to do it, one of the biggest challenges is trying to do it on a budget, well, not technically a budget, but just doing it that you don't spend an absolute fortune on these huge, big systems that never get used. And trying to stay away from using as much diesel as possible. So, yeah, it's good fun.
Yeah. So, looking forward to next time round, and we won't be having cows this time.
No cows.
They were fantastic. We loved them. I've got a great selfie with a bull. His name was Lonergan. Oh yeah, that would be.
So no Highland cattle, mate. Little baby cows.
They are beautiful, aren't they?
Yeah, that's it. So awesome. Well, mate, thank you. I really appreciate your time and your experience. And yeah, if anyone wants to ask Grant questions, you can join the Off-Grid Tribe, and in there you can actually contact through, and there's a link below. You'll be able to ask any questions and learn from Grant. I know Grant's always up for a conversation to help educate others. And but I look forward to talking to you about your new journey.
Great stuff. Likewise, and thanks, Mike.
Mate, thank you.
Glad we could talk. Cheers, mate.
Bye. I hope you enjoyed this episode and found the content educational and inspiring. If you got something out of it and you think you know someone else that would actually also enjoy it, we'd really appreciate if you could share the link with them and encourage them to check out our channel. And don't forget, you can join the Off-Grid Tribe podcast for free, where you can actually ask and interact with myself and also our guest speakers. So jump over today to theoffgridtribe.com, register yourself an account where you can actually have a conversation with myself and one of our guest speakers, and we can continue the conversation there. Together, let's embrace the power of sustainable living.